Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Bobby Umanya. I am one of the pastors here at Grace Church, and we're glad to see you all once again. For those who are back from the last performance, and those probably coming for the first time, welcome. We hope you guys are ready to enjoy good music and a good time. Before we begin, I'd just like to let you guys know, in case there's a need for you to use the restroom, we have one restroom here on my left, your right. You see that exit sign back there. As soon as you walk through that door, the men's restroom will be immediately on your right. Just walk a little more. The ladies' restroom will be on the right. Or you can also go out into the foyer, and the restrooms will be to your right. Now, the other thing is, we are here to enjoy, right, Bethany and Gary's performance. Would you do me a favor and let us take this little guy out and make sure that you or I don't end up putting in our own performance with our phone. So if you can put that on silent, or if you want to turn it off or on vibrate, or if you know that your phone is one of those phones that vibrate probably beyond the measure it should be vibrating, maybe you can go ahead and shut it off, and so we can enjoy today's performance. Now, I will leave it over to Danny.
Thank you very much. Hello, it's great to see familiar faces, and I've seen some new faces today too. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Danny Holt. I'm the founder and artistic director of Desert Hot Springs Classical Concerts. I'm excited about today's concert because my friend Gary, who recently retired as the conductor of the Desert Symphony, is going to be playing. So, and I've just met Beth today. She was kind enough to come into town all the way from LA to play for us today. So I don't want to say too much today. Let's just get right to the music. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to Grace Church for hosting us. It is just so wonderful to be back enjoying live music together in person. I'm a performer myself, and I can tell you that all of us performers are just so thrilled to be able to connect with live audiences again. So thanks for being here. Enjoy the concert. Without further ado, here are Bethany and Gary.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for having us. We are delighted to be here. It's such a lovely space and a wonderful day. C.P.E. Bach was one of the sons of J.S. Bach, and this is very light and lively, and everything kind of in square corners on the piece that you just heard. So the next piece is probably a name you don't even know, Caplet. He was a friend of Debussy's. So if you know anything about Debussy's music, it's kind of in that same vein, a whole different thing than what you just heard. So instead of a lot of straight lines and everything in its place, nothing is in its place. The rhythm seems to be drifting, and the beat, if you try tapping your foot, you might have trouble, and the harmonies are like, so it's a completely different feel. So Caplet's a Reverend Petite Waltz.
For many hundred years in music history, composers sort of wrote in the same vein, although they each had their own personalities, which made it very easy for all of us that study music and listen to music to be able to say, well, that's from the Baroque period, that's a classical piece, that's from the Romantic period. But something happened towards the end of the 1800s at the closing of the Romantic period, and that composers were no longer interested in going in the same direction. They all were looking for different ways of expressing themselves. So we came up with terms like 20th century music, contemporary music, modern music, but that really doesn't help us because things were so specific. One group of composers, they became impressionists, others became serialists, others wrote 12-tone music, others just became minimalists. And so and nowadays, in the 21st century, even using the word contemporary music for something that was written 100 years ago feels a little bit strange. But there was a group of composers. Paul Hindemith was one, Ernst Krenek was another, Igor Stravinsky a third, that said, we can go forward, but we shouldn't lose sight of what has come before us. And they became what we call neoclassicists. In other words, the new composers that were writing in the style or with the same visions and thoughts of Mozart and Haydn and the composers of that period, although they weren't going to be copycats. So as many composers had gotten away from tonality and harmony, Hindemith especially believed very strongly that this is an important part of what music should be: harmony, melody, form. And when you listen to his sonata for flute and piano, which we're going to perform next, you can hear very clearly that there is a tonal base. You can hear very clearly that there are melodies that go back and forth and play between the flute and the piano, or the piano and the flute, and that it's very highly structured. And if it wasn't for what in modern terms we might say sounds like a wrong note, it could very well be something by Mozart or Haydn. going to stay in the 20th century, but we're going to move away from tonality. But don't be worried, it's not going to be a long, long piece. I agree. Olivier Messiaen, French composer, probably one of the greatest we ever had in the 20th century. He wrote huge pieces, an opera about St. Francis that goes for 5.5 hours, had an orchestra in the pit of 110. He wrote a symphony called the Turangalila. It's in 10 movements instead of the usual 4. And at the same time, he could write very small, intimate pieces, such as the one that we're going to perform now, the Merle Noir, or the Blackbird. Now, this is not the same type of blackbird that we see outside checking on the roadkill out here in the desert, but these are European blackbirds, very much like small thrushes. And Messiaen was not only an organist and a composer, but he was also an ornithologist. And during all of his travels, he would always have a little notebook with him, and whenever he heard a bird, first of all, he knew what kind it was. He was an expert. But he would notate what they were singing. Now, a lot of his pieces are about birds specifically, such as this one, but he used bird song in many, many, many of his works. Now, this piece is only 4.5 minutes long. He doesn't give an explanation of exactly what it's supposed to be, other than maybe a walk through nature. For myself, I haven't discussed this with Beth. We can talk about it afterwards. I hear very clearly a blackbird in the trees, and eventually this blackbird begins to sing this beautiful melody, gets a little nervous, and then goes back, and now there's 2 of them, because you can hear one of them playing or singing, and the other one right behind the other one. So there's the 2 of them. A little bit more noise. And suddenly there's 3. And we've just had some ducks in our swimming pool at home, and I can tell you 3 birds don't work. And it becomes almost like a bird fight, scaring off one of them, until finally they just fly away. Now, that's my take on it. Okay, that's 2 of our takes on it. But it'd be interesting to hear what you think. Before Beth introduces the last piece that we're going to perform, on behalf of both of us, we'd like to thank everybody here at Grace Church for making our time here very, very easy, sound, light, music stands, piano tuning. Especially also thank Danny for creating a music series out here. Beth lives in Sierra Madre, but I and my wife are full-time residents of the Coachella Valley, and no one can ever convince me that any place in the world has too much classical music. So we thank you for putting this together, but it would only work if there were people that were interested and people that would come enjoy it, because if we want to do this, I'd be in jeans and a t-shirt if it was just the two of us. But it's so nice to be able to share our passion for music with other people that also have a passion for music. So please continue to support the series, continue to come, and from both of us, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, thank you. So our last piece is another kind of unknown composer, probably to Doppler, Franz Doppler. He was friends with Liszt, so that's maybe one of his claims to fame. He and his brother were both flutists, and when they were young, they would go all around and tour and do all these flute duets all over Europe. And so they were kind of famous. Go on the road and go see the show and see what these amazing flutists can do. So this piece is kind of out of that genre, and you just have to not take it too seriously. Okay, so it's Hungarian fantasy. So you'll hear later on in the piece, especially, a lot of little Hungarian tunes, and he'll do something for a little while, and then he gets tired of that and does another thing in a different way, and then another thing in a different way. So it's often just, you know, kind of floating around between all these Hungarian tunes. The opening is pretty free, lots of stops and starts, a lot of, I think, consternation and a lot of what should we do, and I'm not sure, and life's kind of hard, and I'm not sure what, you know, so a lot of that kind of stuff. So luckily we get to the fun tunes later on. So Doppler's Hungarian Fantasy.
Thank you so much for an awesome concert. Having friends and colleagues like this is what makes Desert Hot Springs classical concerts possible. I want to give you two a special thanks for agreeing to do this concert on relatively short notice. Normally it takes months and months of planning to put together a season of concerts, juggling different artists and their availability and trying to curate a season of concerts that is hopefully somewhat diverse. But planning concerts during the pandemic has just been a nightmare. So many of us have had concerts that have been canceled and postponed and rescheduled and canceled again and postponed, and now we're all starting to get caught up on all the projects we were supposed to be doing in 2020. So this was a situation where we had to kind of put together this season's concerts on relatively short notice once it became clear that we could confidently plan a season of concerts without worrying too much about them being canceled. And I think this might be the record for the quickest and easiest concert that was ever put together. Not the amount of practicing and rehearsing and work on their behalf, but from a purely planning and logistics point of view, I think it was all confirmed within about 24 hours, and that was just that was a miracle. I feel like I had one of the best seats in the house up here. It's fun having played in the Desert Symphony with Gary conducting. We don't usually get to be this close, and this was fun to be a little bit of a part of the music making experience. We've got one more concert. If you're new, if this is one of your first times here, please grab a flyer or a few flyers on your way out. We've got one more concert coming up in I think just 3 weeks. We've got a wonderful violin and piano duo. I want to thank again everyone here at Grace Church for hosting these concerts. The city of Desert Hot Springs also helps make this possible, and you help make this possible with your donations at the door. You can also make donations online on our website. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy what's left of the weekend, and hope to see you again in a few weeks.